Hello and welcome to Female Founders. I'm Rachel McCord. On today's show, we have Daryn Carp, who started a production company with Andy Cohen called MostTalkative, as well as Tracy Holland, the co-founder and CEO of Hatchbeauty Brands. Okay, we have Tracy Holland, co-founder and CEO of Hatch Brands, but you've sold that and now have launched Innerfifth, helping female founders, entrepreneurs stay the course. How incredible. Can you tell us what inspired you to start this community?
You know, after Hatchbeauty Brands was my 13 years, and it was my passion, and also I thought my little bit of a jail. And what I mean by that is when you build a company, all of a sudden you have locked yourself in a lot of times to what you're expected to do, showing up, employees, all the things that it takes to build a business. And so after I transitioned, I ended up doing a podcast and talking to female powerhouse entrepreneurs and founders. And across 70 interviews, I heard the same thing, which was this experience can be so isolating and lonely when building a business and a brand, and how they show up and who they lean on and where they go for advice and guidance really was the impetus to start a community of female founders who are strictly entrepreneurs, women who really are seeking a community of other like-minded women who they need and feel a connection through transparency and vulnerability of showing up as their complete and total self. I've just felt like it could be a great way for women to have a deep connection with each other with a common purpose, who all are female founders who eat what they kill. So.
That's incredible. What are some of the biggest reasons behind the challenges that we face as women, as entrepreneurs?
You know, I think each woman's journey is uniquely her own, but the facts remain that over 50% of businesses in the United States are owned and operated by women, and yet 2% are receiving venture funds. And the reality is only 4% of companies ever exceed $1 million a year or more of women-owned businesses. And so what that says to you is we're working really hard. We're doing all the right things. Without access to capital and all the plates in the air of what it takes to have employees and have overhead and operating expenses, without access to capital, it makes it so challenging to build. Can you imagine? And then the reality is most women choose to have children at some point in their late 20s or early 30s. And so also having those responsibilities, being CEO of your home while building a business, can be overly taxing. So I would say access to capital, access to time, access to resources are all the challenges.
Absolutely. Well, you've had an incredible career. I mean, just learning about the impact that your businesses have done for women and for entrepreneurs as wholes to be able to grow and scale and secure that crucial capital. What would you say is some of the best advice that you could give to entrepreneurs out there who know they need capital but don't know where to start?
Yeah, you know, I was so fortunate. In the beginning of my last business that I built at Hatchbeauty was I met Christy Hefner, who's Hugh Hefner's daughter. The piece of advice she said is network is your net worth. To network and to really go out there and spend every single day, even a 45-minute coffee, line your schedule with people who may not have a direct impact on your immediate business, but have expertise, and always go in with a transformational mindset of how can you make an impact on that person and give them something. You're not walking into that coffee thinking, what can I get from this? You're walking in and saying, I wonder what I could give, what advice or what shared experience, and what does this person have to teach me? And then networking is one of the most impactful things, and it's such really important time well spent. Yes.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. I heard that wisdom of be the first one to bring value, be more interested instead of trying to be so interesting, and just show up and lean in. I think about that every time I go on stage or a show. I get nervous. I'm like, Rachel, you're making it about you. It's not about you.
Yes.
And so I love that you said that, because that just speaks to the core DNA of the brand that you've built. Love to hear more about how women go through this membership program and how they're able to connect with their peers and from advisors and friends and people like yourself.
You know, it's been a last 6 months of deep work in vetting the women that we have join. And what I mean by that is the entrepreneurs who join Innerfifth are qualified by virtue of having a certain number of dollars in performance of their business, just to know that you're in a room full of peers. But one of the things we developed is what we call an entrepreneurial mindset assessment scorecard. And so before one can apply, they need to fill out the assessment. And the reason for that is it helps us understand if she's in a place where she has a growth mindset or if she has a fixed mindset. And so anyone can choose to change their growth mindset. It's not like you were born with this personality type and you can't get over it, but the reality is every single woman who is a founder who's invited to join Innerfifth has a growth mindset, and we know that that's important because what it means is you're going into that relationship using your Rolodex in order to support and help other women, and you would like to have the same. So the currency of the community is our needs and leads, and the things that we may need. I promise you, one phone call away from getting what it is you need, and having the confidence that every woman in that community is going to represent your relationship with that person the way you would want them to is mission critical.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that thinking is so beautiful, because when you know that you need to be able to show up and bring value and you're able to make a difference, I think that there is something about that that just has a tangible result. I'd love to get an example of a growth mindset that you could share.
Sure.
For someone showing up in an event or in a meeting. How could they show up with that mindset?
Sure. It's really just willingness to sit in a place of saying, I don't really know what I don't know right now, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions and see if there's something here that resonates. And once there is, I wonder what I could do to give back to that, or what I could share that would support or help someone else. So we're big advocates and fans at Innerfifth of not giving advice. Because the reality is, I could never be in your shoes. I could never potentially give you advice and say, Rachel, you should do this or that, and absolutely have an opinion, because there's so many variables. But what I will do is open up and share a shared experience with you that could potentially lend itself to something that gives you a huge aha moment. So, for example, when I was transitioning and ready to sell my business, I learned the hard way what it means to take really good capital into a business in a structure versus what predatory capital can look like.
Wow.
And on the outside, you may not know the difference. The number is on the page, the deal structure is the deal. But one of the shared experiences I would share is make sure you call the last 3 founders that investor made an investment in and have lunch with them or get to know them. And ask them their perspective, especially when things get difficult.
Wow.
And so how would you know that? But it's a very different experience when you hear that from me and I say to you, Rachel, I wish I had someone say to me, call the last 3 founders. Instead of,
Genius.
Rachel, call those people and do this and do that. What's your immediate reaction? You're like,
Defensiveness.
who is this, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's game-changing advice. So thank you for sharing that. Even though it's not advice, it's just Shared experience. My last question for you today is, what could you say to the women who are at that stage? They've gotten there, they've gotten to the table, and now they need to receive the help. What advice do you have for that mindset of receiving?
First of all, being in the receiving mode, I love that. Yes. I love that you said that. So what a gift.
I struggle with that personally.
Right? So as women, we show up and we're thinking, oh my gosh, what do we need to give to be able to be in this room right now? So the fact that you're in the room means you deserve to be there. So be in the receiving mode of that gift, right? Be in the receiving mode of listening to those people around you who have a shared experience or advice, but also follow your instinct. How many times have we had someone say, do this or do that, or this is what you should be thinking about, and then later on you think, I had that gut feeling and I totally bypassed it even though I knew. And so follow your gut. If your gut says run, run.
Get your shoes on. You're amazing. Thank you so much, Tracy. And thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up next, we have Daryn Carp. She started a production company with Andy Cohen called MostTalkative. Stay tuned. Okay, we are here with Daryn Carp. She, with Andy Cohen, left Bravo to start MostTalkative, the production company. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited we finally get to work together on something. It's been too long.
Too long. I have been fangirling for so long. It's embarrassing. I love all of your work. You've done so many things.
Thank you.
Love your show, Ask Andy.
Thank you.
You've just done an amazing job with your career of seeing what's happening, seeing what's needed, and creating content and storytelling around that. Can you tell us how you got into this industry?
That's a really good question. Well, I always wanted to be a game show host when I was a little kid. That was my dream, still is my dream. So hopefully someone out there will let me host a game show eventually. But I was looking up in college. I went to a small private liberal arts school called Lafayette, and they had no media, entertainment, anything. No one in my family's in media entertainment. And I was looking up how some game show hosts got started on the internet, like on Wikipedia. And they said that they were NBC pages. Like a couple of them were NBC pages. Regis Philbin was an NBC page. I believe Gene Rayburn was an NBC page. So I looked up the program and I applied my senior year, and that's how I got in. That's how I started my whole entertainment career. I had a couple internships at CNBC, but being an NBC page really started my trajectory.
So what is an NBC page?
It was a paid internship where you'd have to give tours of NBC Universal. You'd work at least 6 days a week, and then you got to go on 3-month assignments around NBC Universal. So I got to work at MSNBC, I worked at Sci-Fi, I worked at SNL, I worked at a bunch of different, I ran teleprompter for one of the weekend anchors at 4 a.m. on Saturdays, which was, I cut my teeth on that job for sure, but it was great. I got to meet a bunch of people, and you have the NBC email, so people are willing to meet with you.
How did you feel? You're walking into some of the scariest networks. You've got this big dream to be a game show host, so of course you know that you're in rooms with game-changing people like Andy Cohen.
Yeah.
How did you overcome the nerves? I know there were nerves there.
Of course there were nerves. I mean, I grew up in a suburb of Manhattan, so I was used to the big city. It wasn't like I was coming from someplace that was smaller, so I kind of knew the environment a little bit. I always thought my personality was going to carry me far, my energy far, but Andy used to say that it's not like he works in TV, he gets to work in television, and that was really the mentality that I was going in with. What a privilege to be here. Even if I don't get it, I get to walk amongst the greats. I'm in 30 Rockefeller Plaza, which is arguably the most famous building in television and media, Yeah, you just kind of push through, and I'm one of those people that when they're nervous, they make jokes, and I think my humor kind of helped me propel my personality a little bit forward, and so that's kind of how I dealt with it. But yeah, very, very stressful.
I bet.
And young. Yeah, I was very young. Yeah.
And you've done an amazing job of being in these rooms and taking the right steps. You obviously do storytelling and pitching every day, all the time. You're creating these new concepts and you're putting them out on the table. So what advice would you give to someone hoping to pitch, whether it's their business or a TV show?
I mean, I think the first thing is having a really good idea. You need a hook. If you're going to pitch, I've never written a book, but I imagine that it's kind of the same thing. You need the log line to just jump out at you. It can't just be the same old story. You need some type of hook that's going to draw viewers in. In television, we kind of have this thing that especially in unscripted where I work, all of the reality shows and unscripted shows are really just 2% different than each other. They're all derivative of kind of the same concept, right? Like Housewives exists outside of Bravo. You know, Jersey Shore and Housewives are very, very similar. It's just the backgrounds that they kind of come from and the age and what they're kind of being put through. So you need to have a really good pitch. If it's for an unscripted show, cast is key. You know, you need to have people kind of involved in it. Keep it authentic. Run through your pitch several times. Keep it short and tight. No one wants to read a tome when they go into a meeting. You know, they don't want to read 10 pages of everything. Keep the log line nice, keep the description nice, and just kind of go throughout the show. If I can get it from reading a piece of paper, then the show is kind of brilliant. You shouldn't have to kind of do all these other things unless it's a casting tape. So just make sure that there's people interested, and also like pitch your friends. Like, would you watch this show? You know, would you, how could I improve this? What are you not getting? And take kind of feedback from other people, and that's kind of the way to do it. But let me tell you something, 99% of things that you're gonna pitch is gonna be a no.
Okay, so with that, I love that you said that, right?
Yeah.
Because that is the same exact thing when I go out with my business and I'm saying,
Yeah.
okay, I'm pitching it. I want the retailer, I want the investor, I want someone to buy this.
Of course.
I'm getting all of those no's. So how do you deal with that?
You have to be confident about it. If you're gonna be in this industry, which I think you know, especially as a woman, it's cutthroat. You know, you can't take it personally. Now, sometimes I think it's important, some feedback I think is unnecessary, right? Like there's some things that you just can't change. Like when I'm auditioning to be a host of something, if someone doesn't like the tone of my voice or the cut of my jib, there's not really much I can do to change that, you know? But if someone's like, you talk too fast, slow down, that's something I can kind of work with, and a critique that I can kind of take in and say like, okay, like I will improve it for the next time. I wish I was the type of person sitting here today that said that I wasn't disappointed or disheartened every time I got a no. I care a lot about my career, and I think most people should do that. I think it's a good thing that we feel something. If you are kind of like a robot and not feeling any sort of effect of a rejection, I'm not sure the project was worth doing in the first place. Anything hard, anything difficult, anything worth it is gonna take a lot of rejection to get there. But on the flip side of that, I think it's also like, you know, think of how many ideas it wasn't that it wasn't a good idea, it was that it was at the wrong time.
And I think that that's so important with what you do, right? So many people say, do what you're good at. You're great at this, do this. You have a little spin on that. Can you share how authenticity plays into how you founded your brand?
Yeah, I sort of always say that you have to say I before you can say I love you. And that's I love you to anything. You have to be able to really know yourself first. And I think a lot of people, my parents included, you know, even though I want to be a game show host, you know, my mom's an engineer, my dad was in banking, he ran our family industry as well, and it was always like, you're good at math and science, you know, just do what you're good at, do what you're good at. So many people, do what you're good at. But the truth is, if you do what you're good at, that doesn't mean you're good at what you love. I'm good at a lot of things that I don't love. You know, like I'm pretty good at soccer, I'm really good at math, I love science, but I don't want to dedicate my career to that because it's just not authentic to me. So I think that you should really do what you love. And, you know, if you can kind of do what you love and get paid for it, there's really no job, you know, that's all career, that's all really like brand building for yourself. I don't think that you're ever really gonna have an unhappy day, and that has proven, I can't really think of outside of rejection, I can't really think of like a horrible day that I've ever had in my 13, 14 years of being in this industry, which I think is such a privilege and important. You know, I always have a smile on my face.
Wow. I love that you call that out because I can totally relate. When you were saying that, I was thinking, that's exactly how I feel. I don't feel like I have bad days. I have scary days because
Absolutely.
I'm constantly doing more than I think I'm capable of. I'm like, I really don't think that I should be doing this, and then I'm doing it. And
stressful days, of course, and anxiety inducing, but like when you really look at a miserable day, outside of anything that might have been happening in my personal life, you know, my grandfather passing away or something like that, which you can't really control, my career, like, no. Because every failure builds on something to be a success eventually. You know, you can learn so much from what you don't know than what from you already do know. You know, so you have to kind of take every chance as like an opportunity to learn about yourself.
I love that. Okay, I have to ask.
Yes.
What is it like working with Andy? What are your days like? What's your work like? It seems like such an exciting side of your career.
Well, he's the best. I mean, I honestly couldn't ask for a better mentor in this journey that I call life. And it's kind of, you know, when I applied right from the Page program, when I applied to go work for him, I didn't want the job. And I had 2 HR interviews and an interview with his old assistant and then him. And by that second interview, I was like, oh, I kind of want this. You know, like I didn't know my page bosses saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. They saw a future doing this path because I was so OCD minded. I was like, no, this is the only way I can be. And I didn't really open myself up to other chances for success. And when I met with him, finally, he sat me down, and in the room, you're already kind of intimidated, even though I didn't really know who he was at that time. But he was like, what's your favorite Bravo show? What's your least favorite Bravo show, and why? And remember, I didn't watch Bravo. So I had studied, thank God. And I said to him, my favorite Bravo show is Inside the Actor's Studio, which is not a typical answer if you were going to get in front of Andy Cohen and say what your best favorite
You're
Bravo.
gonna say Real Housewives of anything.
Or Watch It Happens Live, right? Like you're
course.
gonna say that.
Of course.
And so I said, yeah, because I like the interview questions, which I do, and I love Millionaire Matchmaker because it teaches me what to do on dates with women. So I could kind of drop the, like you're gay, I'm gay, like we relate in that way. And he was like, what's your least favorite show? And I said, All the Housewives.
You did not.
I said this to this man, and his face, like knowing him now for the better part of a decade, I was like, why did he hire me? But I sort of get it. So he was taken aback, and he was like, why? Like he was kind of like, do you know who I am? Like, why are you saying this? What kind of person says this? And I said,
Why are you here?
Why are you here?
Why do you want this job?
What is going on? And I was just like, yeah, I can't relate. I don't have the same issues as them. They're all so rich, and so it's just that's not my flavor. I just don't really like them. And he was like, okay, like trying to think about what I did. And I left that interview being like, there's no chance. There's just absolutely no chance I'm gonna get this. I bombed it, And he took me, and I asked him later, I was like, why'd you take me? He's like, you were really honest, you were authentic, and you made me laugh. And you were the only person to ever kind of make me laugh. And I also realized it was because I wasn't pretending to be someone else, and he didn't want someone flipping out every time SGP or Ramona Singer walked through the door. He wanted to be greeted like me, being like, who are you? What can I do for you? What do you need? And understand sort of my role. And so my authenticity really actually helped me so much, and I didn't even realize that was like my first big kind of thing with him. And so it worked out. It was very intimidating though, very intimidating.
Wow, what great advice. Be authentic, be real, don't be
Yes.
afraid to make them laugh. And I love what you said too, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Thank you so much, Daryn. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Female Founders.